Yeah.
Okay, so my name's Dougie McMahon. I'm one of the board members of SMISA, which is the fan-owned group that owns St Mirren Football Club. We're one of two boards that operate here. We've got the club board and the fan-owned SMISA board, and I'm the vice chair of the SMISA board, and I take to do with all the sort of membership stuff and work closely with the football side of things, with the manager and Alan McManus at the academy and Keith Lasley.
Jim Thompson's my name. I'm currently the treasurer of the Supporters Trust and volunteer around the ground, shareholder, been supporting them for about 60 years now.
I'm Steve Smith. I'm currently the secretary of the Stirling Albion Supporters Trust, and match day volunteer, help out on the match days as well.
Yeah.
So my name's Alan Russell. I'm the executive director of Supporters Direct Scotland, also on the board of Football Supporters Europe, leading their fan ownership and heritage protection work. And in my day job, I'm a management consultant. I've been involved with the Raith Supporters Trust for close to 20 years. I'm currently the chair of the trust. We were set up about 20 years ago when trusts were starting to become an established thing in Scottish football and beyond. We had a bit of a crisis time around about 2005 and got a lot of support from Supporters Direct at the time. Things settled down for about 10 years, and I gave a presentation at an annual conference to Supporters Direct Scotland on the ownership of Raith Rovers. Was asked to do another project by Supporters Direct to extend that work and to look at who owns the rest of Scottish football. Then joined their board, and a year after joining their board, when the chief executive job came available, I took that on a part-time basis, and I've been there for the last five years doing that role, which has kind of morphed into an executive director role.
I wasn't as a child. I came to Stirling as an adult and just gradually got into watching them more often.
I'm the opposite. I was a fan since I was a kid. Started to come, uncle took me to a midweek game, just got totally enthralled by it and got involved, and I've been since this was about 9-10 year old.
Yeah, lifelong St Mirren fan. I'm from a family of St Mirren fans. When they watched them through the dark days of the 1990s, when the opportunity came along for us to be fan owned, it was something that I very much wanted to be part of. Didn't get involved with the board straight away, just wanted to see how things sorted themselves out, but was on board with the fan ownership straight away, and supported them through the highs and the lows since I was over 40 years now.
Very simply, it's a club that's owned by its fans collectively, not individually. So some people think the guy who owns our club is a fan, so we're a fan-owned club. But what we describe as a fan-owned club is one where the fans collectively, with one member, one vote, set up a legal entity that owns the club on their behalf. So it's no longer dependent on one person. There's no risk of that person getting hit by a bus, and you can share the responsibility of owning the club and steer it towards a long-term, stable and sustainable future.
So what it is, you own at least 51% of the shares, which is what we own. And what happens is it wasn't just about fans coming together to put money in a pot to buy the club. There's then an ongoing monthly subscription. So it is like a business investing in the club, but instead of one man or a company, it's individual fans. And that the monthly subscription that you pay, we've got 4, but there's a fourth one that people paid a lump sum at the start, and they don't pay monthly. But we've got 3 tiers, and that money comes in to SMISA, and then we have a pot, and we divvy it out. Different areas of the club benefit from some of that money. It aids the club. Have projects, the fans get to pick certain projects around the stadium, and we bank some money as well, so that there is a nest egg as well. And it's all about making sure that the fans are at the heart of the club. But what we always emphasise is that it's fan owned, not fan run. And yes, every member of SMISA and fans who aren't a member have a say. We don't we don't. It's not that they don't have a voice, but they then vote on a club board, of which SMISA has 4 representatives on the club board, one of which is John Needham, our chairman, and then we have the SMISA board, and basically the fans work with the SMISA board and we take stuff to the club board, and that's how it works. And that's the big emphasis on fan ownership, that it's fan owned but it's not fan run. The minute it's fan run, that's where you get problems. So St Mirren Independent Supporters Association has been on the go for about 20 years, so long before fan ownership became a thing, and it was a small concern. It was just like a fan group, and they operated, they paid small subscriptions just for different things, and then as we came into the sort of mid 2010s, as I would say, St Mirren Football Club was put up for sale by the chairman Stuart Gilmer and his fellow directors, who had done a good job but had taken the club as far as they could. There was interest in the club from, shall we say, undesirables, not going to name names, foreign investors that clearly probably didn't have St Mirren's best interests at heart, and our ex-director Gordon Scott and SMISA, the fan group, came together to look at how we could own the club as fans. Fan ownership was very new at that time. We didn't really know how it would pan out, and in most clubs that had become fan owned, Hearts, Motherwell were the 2 in Scotland, Exeter City in England, I think Wimbledon at that time had just gone fan owned. Every fan owned club in the UK at that time had become fan owned because they were in crisis. St Mirren weren't, so it was very different. We were buying a club that was, yes, we hadn't long been relegated to the Championship, but we weren't in danger of going out of business or anything like that. So it was just trying to formulate a plan on how that would come about, and the die was cast, and that was the 10-year plan was put into motion.
Yeah, so we exist. We're originally part of a UK-wide organisation that was set up in the early 2000s with government funding to really investigate and try to establish an alternative way of owning clubs. Around about that time, there was lots of clubs in crisis, north and south of the border, a lot of financial stretch in the game, and a lot of clubs were getting into severe financial difficulties. Some clubs, relatively few, ceased to exist, but a lot of them went into administration, some of them more than once, and it was a way of coming up with an alternative, a rescue package, if you like, where everybody takes shared responsibility and ownership for the club going forward, but then has gradually developed into a more stable and more kind of well-known and more predictable way of owning a club. And what we have in Scotland now, since we established ourselves about 5 years ago as an independent organisation in Scotland, the nature of the work that we do here is quite different than happens south of the border and on the continent. We have quite a natural and slow and proactive transition towards fan ownership at a lot of clubs. So we're there to support the fans groups that are wanting to take that approach, as well as being for those who experience times of crisis, which thankfully is pretty rare these days in Scottish football. Changed without supporters being consulted.
It's a community benefit society set up under that legislation. It's open to anybody to join, just for an annual subscription, and if you join, you get a vote on vital issues affecting the club.
The biggest challenge, I guess, is my own frustrations that things don't move quickly enough, and when what I think is a really easily understood idea is really hard to get that idea across. So what is it that makes fan ownership a good idea? It means we're all taking responsibility, we're all sharing the load. That to me is such an easy concept, and it's frustrating when it takes a lot of time to get beyond that. And there's a lot of misinterpretations of what fan ownership is and what supporters are really as well. I mean, supporters are your customers if you're running a club. Supporters are the most passionate people. They're the people with the longest history. And football clubs, their role has got the longest history often in the town and the community where they live. So fans, communities and football clubs share the same interests and share the same values a lot of the time, and my frustration is kind of getting that across to people and saying, actually, this is not a threat. We're not trying to change what you want to do. We're not trying to kind of start a revolution. We're actually just trying to get everybody working together.
So the main benefit is it safeguards our club for the rest of the time. You know, the most important people at any club is the fans, so it safeguards that. It's allowed projects to go ahead. It's allowed fans to feel more involved rather than just buying their ticket on a Saturday and coming and watching their team, or buying a shirt out the club shop. We have benefits for the fans, so it really gets the fans involved, and that's the biggest advantage of being fan owned. The biggest disadvantage is you'll always get somebody that wants to run the club, okay, a group, and we understand that people think, well, I pay my £12 a month or my £25, I want to have a say. That's been the biggest challenge, and the biggest challenge as well was we became fan owned 5 years sooner, but that's probably another question, than we planned to be, which brought about a different model than we originally planned, and that's brought challenges in itself.
I'll have to say that the current position is, and this applies to every football club at the minute, is sustainability. Can we survive as a football club? And the fact that we are fan owned means that if we have to, we've never had to really do this at Stirling Albion, but go to the fans and say, look, there are financial commitments that we have to make, we will need you to back that up. Now, other clubs have different models. As I say, there's some like Dunfermline, etc., where they pay monthly fees. We're not at that stage, but we are financially viable, we've got money in the bank, but it might not always be the case. So we're different from other clubs, but equally we understand the difficulties of running a football club.
Much more positive. It's really pulled us together. We were getting crowds of 3,000 when we first. We're now filling our stadium every week. The amount of young people that are involved, that come to the ground, we're getting more and more young people involved in SMISA. The SMISA board was very much 40 plus for a while, and I'll give you this information. I was the youngest person on the SMISA board at 48 years old. We've now got 2 younger people where there is more benefit around. We contribute to the charitable foundation, which helps the local community. We get involved in things that are going on in Paisley and Renfrewshire. So there's a huge benefit to not just the football club, but around the whole area.
I don't know, it's had a great deal on the community at large. It's just really on. I think it gives the supporters a sense of
that sense of ownership.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we did when we kicked off the trust, as I say, although it was 2003 we affiliated, we took ownership in 2012, and one of our commitments was community. And we have honoured that commitment. We are out there in the community, by and large working with Active Stirling, who are the branch of Stirling Council who run sports events. So we're out there in the community, but I'm not going to pretend that beyond that it has any impact on the way the football club is run. Hopefully, because we're out there, kids will begin to realise there's more to football than the 2 Glasgow sides, and I think we're making inroads, Steve. I think it would be fair to say that.
Yeah, I think more recently there's more going on. There's a charity, the Stirling Albion Foundation, that's also been set up recently to kind of handle the community side of things. leaving the Stirling Albion Football Club, just really dealing with the professional game and some youth training. So, well, I would hope, as Jim says, I would hope that you get local youngsters realising that, as I say, that there's a club in their own town that they can actually come along and watch the games.
Well, we now have 8 clubs in the SPFL who are under fan ownership, 8 of the 42. I think that's the highest level anywhere in Europe or in the rest of the world where we have clubs under fan ownership, other than the countries where there's legislation in place that means you have to have 50% owned by the fans. So outside the countries with that regulation and legislation, we've got the highest levels of fan ownership in Scotland, and I don't think that's an accident. We've been part of that. We've not been the only people that have been behind that. A lot of fan groups have got on with it and done it really without needing too much help, but we're always there to give support if it's needed. We've also been instrumental in bringing in the support to liaison officer role in Scottish football. So Scotland was one of the first countries to implement that, and we led that in partnership with the SFA and the SPFL to bring that into Scottish football. And that gives supporters, every supporter at their club, if they have an SLO, it gives them somebody they can go to with any concerns on a match day or any other time, and find a way to talk to the right person at the club. So it's a conduit between the supporters and the people owning and running the club. And I think that's a really important role, a big part of what we do. We're very proud of what we've done there, and we have about 30 of the 42 SPFL clubs with an SLO now, which is great numbers. I think the other thing that's changed in Scottish football, and we're sitting here at Albion Rovers today, is that the pyramid has opened up. So that what's often described as a trapdoor at the bottom of the SPFL has opened up, and clubs can go down there, and that's another kind of risk that needs to be managed, and impact needs to be managed. So we'd love to help clubs that are looking at that trapdoor with fear to understand it more, to get prepared for it, and see what it is that they can do to deal with that. Albion Rovers has a supporters trust, Cowdenbeath have a supporters trust, Berwick Rangers are down there, they have a supporters trust that owns a significant shareholding there. So the clubs going down into the Lowland League or Highland League, if they're better prepared for that and they can harness the power of their support to make that a good experience when they're down at that level, and hopefully if they can rise back up again, it's an easy transition back up again.
Well, when we took over the club, we had to pay out money to buy the shares. It was around about £400,000, and we had commitments beyond that. So we had a debt roughly of £600,000. We've paid off that debt, and we have cash in the bank. Now, not many football clubs can say that's the case. It's not going to last forever. As I say, football is in a precarious position at the minute. We very much rely on our fans to turn out on a Saturday. We've been fortunate that we actually won the league last year, so we're up a division. But football finances are in a bad way, and there's no getting away from that fact. So, although we're doing well, we've got to look one eye to the future.
On the pitch, we've got arguably the best team that we've had in a long time. We finished in the top 6 last year for the first time under the current, the way the league's laid out at the moment. We've got ourselves into a good financial position, which was a challenge because it was well highlighted that we had challenges there on the back of COVID, and also filling the stadium every week. Smicer pay for tickets, we've got community tickets in the family stand, just things that you probably couldn't do if you were not fan owned.
Perfect. And final question is, what does the future hold for Stirling Albion, and what are your hopes for community owned clubs in Scotland in general?
The future, in terms of playing, we want to initially consolidate in League One and hopefully move on further. I'd like to think that there'll be more fan-owned clubs in future. The other option is you're depending on one or two wealthy individuals to put money in, Some of them do a good job, some of them don't, and some people just cause problems. We also have the problem which Stirling Albion faced. It was when the previous owner no longer wished to subsidise the club and couldn't find anybody else to take over. So there could well be quite a few other clubs will find themselves in the same situation. And really the only permanent thing is the fans at a club.
Future for St Mirren is, we hope that the membership of SMISA increases, and that we continue to grow both as a SMISA and as the club. We hope that the club is here for generations to come and still under fan ownership. And obviously with that, the more people that are coming through the door, we can expand the stadium, the more money's coming in, the team does better. We want to get into Europe again. It's been 40 years since, last year was a big step getting into the top 6. It'd be nice to add European football into that at least once, maybe add a cup. We're realistic that we're probably not going to win the Premier League, but it'd be nice to bring a cup back to Paisley as well. For other clubs, I think it's very important that fan ownership will not work for certain clubs. We know that, but especially if you're a one town, one team, the people who care about your club the most are the fans. You've got to realise that, and if it's done correctly, then your club will survive. You've got to come up with the correct model. St Mirren's model might not work for other teams, but you've got to, and I would like to see that the majority of clubs, there's clubs out there in Scotland that are of a similar size to St Mirren, some smaller, that could easily become fan owned, the likes of Dunfermline, Ayr United, teams like that, even down to the smaller teams, Queen of the South, things like that. If there is the opportunity to go that way, absolutely.
Well, I think the 8 fan-owned clubs that we've got in the SPFL, they're really kind of holding up a beacon for the rest of the Scottish football, that there is another way of running your club, and it's stable. It's not as scary as people think it is. It does come with some challenges. The biggest one being, you're no longer reliant on one person with deep pockets who can bail you out if you get things wrong. And football is very, very unpredictable, so most clubs will get things wrong at some point in time, and not having a quick fix to that is a bit of a challenge to that. But I think the benefits far outweigh that challenge, and actually having a much deeper level of fan engagement, a lot more people willing to step forward and help out. And when things do go wrong, you've got hundreds or thousands of people who can share the load and share the burden of that, and be part of a strategy to get things right again, get things moving in a positive direction. So I think, and my hope is that 8 turn into 12, turn into 20, turn into 30. I don't think all clubs will be fan owned. Probably shouldn't be as well. There's some that probably have got they've got a much stronger future as they are, particularly the ones at the very, very top that are in a world that's competing with hundreds with the financially being talked about in hundreds of millions and now billions. So competing with a club that's operating in the Champions League as a fan-owned club would be really, really difficult. So I'm not recommending it as the only answer, but for the bulk of Scottish football, I think it's a model that could work really, really well. And if we were all playing that same game, it would make it easier and make some of those challenges a little bit easier to navigate.